The 8th of April, 1945, about 5 miles northwest of the city of Weimar, Nazi Germany. Buchenwald camp prisoners, using a secret shortwave transmitter and small generator, send the Morse code message to the Allies, to the army of General Patton. This is the Buchenwald concentration camp. SOS, we request help. They want to evacuate us. The SS want to destroy us. 3 minutes after the transmission, desperate prisoners receive the message, "Hold out, rushing to your aid, staff of 3rd Army." 3 days later, on the 11th of April, the US 6th Armored Division liberates Buchenwald and finds more than 21,000 survivors who are weak and emaciated. After General Patton tours the camp, he orders the mayor of the nearby city of Weimar to bring 1,000 citizens to Buchenwald to be shown the crematorium and other evidence of Nazi atrocities. The Americans want to ensure that the German people take responsibility for Nazi crimes instead of dismissing them as atrocity propaganda. Many of them cry, and some even faint after seeing the dead bodies, starved survivors behind barbed wire fences, as well as a table displaying paintings on human skins, various parts of the human body preserved in alcohol, and 2 heads which were shrunk to 1/5 of their normal size. One of the most infamous perpetrators of the criminal Nazi regime responsible for these atrocities is Martin Sommer. Walter Gerhard Martin Sommer, a son of a farmer, was born on the 8th of February 1915 in Schkerlen, then part of the German Empire. In 1931, Sommer joined the Nazi Party, and 2 years later, in 1933, he joined the SS. Soon after their assumption of power in January 1933, Nazi leaders began to make good on their pledge to persecute German Jews. During the first 6 years of Hitler's dictatorship, from 1933 until the outbreak of war in 1939, Jews felt the effects of more than 400 decrees and regulations that restricted all aspects of their public and private lives. Many of those laws were national ones that had been issued by the German administration and affected all Jews. But state, regional, and municipal officials, on their own initiative, also promulgated a barrage of exclusionary decrees in their own communities. Thus, hundreds of individuals in all levels of government throughout the country were involved in the persecution of Jews as they conceived, discussed, drafted, adopted, enforced, and supported anti-Jewish legislation. No corner of Germany was left untouched. Nazi propaganda played an integral role in advancing the persecution and ultimately the destruction of Europe's Jews. It created an atmosphere tolerant of violence against Jews and also encouraged passivity and acceptance of the impending measures against them, and these appear to depict the Nazi government as stepping in and restoring order. An integral feature of the regime in Nazi Germany between 1933 and 1945 were concentration camps. The major purpose of the earliest concentration camps during the 1930s was to imprison and intimidate the leaders of political, social, and cultural movements that the Nazis perceived to be a threat to the survival of the regime. Martin Sommer's career in concentration camps began at Dachau. Established in March 1933, it was the first regular concentration camp built by the Nazi government. In October 1933, Dachau's commandant, Theodor Eicke, introduced a system of regulations which inflicted brutal punishments on prisoners for the slightest offenses. In the camp, Eicke was known as Papa Eicke, and his guards as Papa Eicke's boys, and under the slogan, "Tolerance means weakness," he advised his men that any SS man with a soft heart should retire at once to a monastery. Eicke ensured that the Dachau camp served as a model for all later concentration camps. It also became a training center for SS guards who were deployed throughout the concentration camp system. During the first year, the camp had a capacity of 5,000 prisoners. Initially, the internees were primarily German communists, social democrats, trade unionists, and other political opponents of the Nazi regime. However, over time, other groups were also interned at Dachau, such as Jehovah's Witnesses, Roma and Sinti people, homosexuals, repeat criminal offenders, as well as so-called asocials, whom the regime incarcerated because they could not or would not find gainful employment. During the early years, relatively few Jews were interned in Dachau, and then only usually because they belonged to one of the aforementioned groups, or had completed prison sentences after being convicted for violating the Nuremberg laws of 1935. Dachau prisoners were also used as forced laborers. They were employed in the operation of the camp in various construction projects and in small handicraft industries established in the camp. They built roads, worked in gravel pits, and drained marshes, all under terrible conditions. Dachau concentration camp was a place where many Nazi guards, such as Martin Sommer, learned how to torture the prisoners that they supervised and how to get the maximum amount of work out of them whilst they were still alive. In the summer of 1937, Sommer was deployed in the Buchenwald concentration camp, which was one of the largest concentration camps established within German borders. The camp became operational from July the same year. Most of the early inmates at Buchenwald were political prisoners, people who had been arrested for some form of political opposition to the Nazi regime. In addition to the political prisoners and Jews, Buchenwald prisoners also included repeat offenders, Jehovah's Witnesses, Sinti and Roma people, and German military deserters. Prisoners lived in the Buchenwald main camp, which was surrounded by an electrified barbed wire fence, watchtowers, and a chain of sentries outfitted with automatic machine guns. At the entrance to the main camp, there was a notorious punishment block known as the bunker, where prisoners who violated the camp regulations were punished, and often tortured to death. A man who was responsible for this punishment block, and who became known as the Hangman of Buchenwald, was Martin Sommer. In the bunker, Sommer kept a secret compartment concealed in the floor under his desk to hide torture instruments and the needles with which he shot carbolic acid and air into victims' veins. Sommer often laid the bodies beneath his bed for the night, where the corpse bearers had to remove them the following morning. When the corpse bearers arrived with a stretcher, Sommer would carry the body from his bunker over his shoulder. He would then throw it down onto the stretcher with as much force as he could muster, all the while muttering reprehensibly. One of Sommer's many specialties was the whipping block, where prisoners were forced to count the strokes allowed as Sommer beat them with a heavy stick. If they lost count, Sommer started again. One man who was sentenced to 25 strokes and got 60 lashes this way died on the spot. Another Sommer specialty was hanging prisoners by their wrists from trees. Because of the screams of the victims, this torture method became known as the singing forest. Sommer had a special hatred for priests. On one occasion, after beating a German pastor, he hung him naked outside in the winter before throwing buckets of water on him. The pastor froze to death. On another occasion, when a Catholic priest performed the sacrament of penance for a fellow inmate, Sommer beat the priest to death. Otto Neururer, an Austrian Roman Catholic priest, fared even worse. In 1938, shortly after the annexation of Austria, he was arrested for attempting to persuade a girl not to be wed to a man of questionable morals. He was then sent first to Dachau and then to Buchenwald. In April 1940, despite suspecting a trap, Neururer agreed to perform a forbidden baptism at the camp for a prisoner who had approached him. After he did, he was sent to the punishment block. Martin Sommer hung him upside down, then nailed him to a tree. Practically crucified, Neururer did not scream. Instead, he prayed silently. Otto Neururer was left there for 36 hours before being killed by Sommer. Martin Sommer also starved inmates, hanged them in their cells, poisoned what little food they had, or simply beat them to death with a piece of iron. He also injected phenol, EpiPen, or air into prisoners' veins. In one case, Sommer is said to have crushed the skull of a prisoner with a screw clamp. Another Sommer specialty was to bend a prisoner backwards so their wrists could be tied to their ankles and their body took the form of a circle. Then, Sommer would ferociously kick the bound and helpless prisoner until they gave no more signs of life. On another occasion, when the tied-up prisoner received 25 strokes with a stick on his bare buttocks, Sommer hit him so ferociously and so hard that afterward he complained to his fellow Nazi colleagues that he had blisters on his hands. Sometimes, he even snatched the stick out of the hands of other SS men and continued to hit the inmate if he thought they were not being hit hard enough. Many of those who were lucky enough to survive his beatings were taken to the infirmary with damaged kidneys. Another of Sommer's specialties was scrubbing prisoners' backs with steel brushes and then pouring acid onto the wounds. At Buchenwald, Sommer was complicit in the atrocities committed by Ilse Koch, a Nazi guard, and wife of the camp's commandant, Karl-Otto Koch. She was a sexual deviant who enjoyed walking around the camp half naked or in skimpy clothes, provoking prisoners to make eye contact with her. When they did, she told Sommer, and he would torture, beat, and kill these prisoners. Sommer himself was also a sexual deviant and took part in sexual orgies organized in Buchenwald by Ilse Koch, together with SS men serving in the camp, and sometimes even their wives participated. In 1941, Buchenwald caught the attention of Josias, hereditary prince of Waldeck and Piedmont. This higher SS and police leader for Weimar had in this position supervisory authority over Buchenwald concentration camp. He decided to investigate the charges of cruelty, unauthorized murder, and embezzlement at Buchenwald. After Waldeck interviewed members of the guards and prisoners, he sent the results to Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, who allowed him to continue the investigation. As a result, in 1943, Heinrich Himmler appointed SS judge Dr. Georg Konrad Morgan to investigate allegations at the Buchenwald camp. Morgan found the allegations to be true, and Sommer's treatment of prisoners so excessively brutal and sadistic that he put Sommer on trial at the same time as Buchenwald commandant Karl-Otto Koch and his wife Ilse for embezzlement and abuse of the prisoners at Buchenwald. While Karl-Otto Koch was convicted and later executed, his wife Ilse was acquitted for lack of evidence. Sommer was then sentenced to a reduction in rank and sent to a penal battalion fighting on the Eastern Front to redeem himself. In the Soviet Union, he was wounded in a tank explosion, losing his right leg and permanently crippling his right arm. He was arrested by the Soviet army and was detained as a prisoner of war until 1950, when his prisoner status was changed from prisoner of war to war criminal. In 1955, as part of the negotiations conducted on behalf of the Soviet-held German prisoners by then-Chancellor of Germany Konrad Adenauer, Sommer was released. After first declaring him unfit for trial, West German authorities changed their minds when in 1956, Sommer married a 21-year-old blonde nurse. Because he suffered from frequent fainting, Sommer reportedly fainted twice during his wedding. He soon had a child with his wife and casually applied for an increase in his veteran's pension. On the 14th of January, 1957, Sommer was forced to a physical examination, and because his condition had noticeably improved and he was no longer in need of constant care, he was hailed to court. The charge: 53 murders. A psychiatrist's finding on Sommer: legally sane, but flagrantly sadistic. During the trial, prosecutor Paulik described Martin Sommer's crimes as a look into Dante's Inferno. Sommer blandly admitted the beatings and even built a cardboard model of the whipping block to show the court. He also said, "I can't claim to have hit the last strokes as hard as the first. You always get a little tired." When being shown a photo of prisoners hanging by their wrists from trees, he was asked, "Is that you standing beside them?" To which Sommer replied, "No, we did not hang our prisoners so high." In court in 1958, Sommer denied that he had killed anyone and excused his brutality in the beatings by saying that his youth and athletic physical strength had been abused by the camp administration. However, his lies did not help him escape justice. The court found Martin Sommer guilty of murder of at least 25 prisoners by injection and sentenced him to the maximum punishment permitted under West German law: life imprisonment. When one German, looking at Sommer sitting in his wheelchair, said, "You have already paid for your bestialities," Sommer wept gratefully in pity, but for himself. He lost not only his freedom, but also his family, as his wife divorced him and got a restraining order against him, which prohibited Sommer from having any sort of contact with her and their daughter. In 1971, however, Sommer was released from jail because there was no facility to continue the treatment of his war injuries. He was transferred to a hospital, and in 1937 a nursing home, where he remained for the rest of his life. He was 73 years old when he died on the 7th of June, 1988. There were no tears shed for Martin Sommer. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.